Friends, welcome back. Let me tell you a story. It's the story of a young man named Ivan, and Ivan, he's described as someone who's right down the center of life. He's not like his older brother who's cold and formal, nor is he like his younger brother who's wild and wasteful. No, Ivan is polished, he's intelligent, and he's agreeable. And Ivan, he does what anybody in the high ranks of society at that time of his life, this is late 19th century Europe, late 19th century Russia, and he's trying to make a name for himself. He's trying to grow his position. He marries well. He marries above his station, not so much for love, but because it'll make for a good life. And as time rolls on, though, the marriage runs cold. His life seems to run cold, but that's okay. He and his wife are never in love anyway, so long as they have the image of what love looks like. And he can pour himself into his work, but not so much his work, but the image of his work, and climbs the ladder of that too. He does well because he's smart. He's down the middle. He's agreeable. And he gets a high-ranking position in the courts, in this judicial system. And he does well at this also, and from the outside in, he's the image that others would want. To be intelligent, to be agreeable, to be right down the middle. And one day he's at home and he's hanging curtains in his home, and he has to pull a ladder over to climb up to hang these curtains, and he's going to hang the curtains, but he loses his balance. And he lands hard on his side. And the pain is excruciating. And there's so much pain on the inside as the days go on that actually the pain manifests on the outside and he begins to treat people ill, including his family. And finally, they can't take enough. They say, you've got to get a doctor in here to help you. And the doctor comes, and the doctor uses large words, and it seems to know what he's talking about, but never really says what is going on, because the doctor doesn't want to say that he doesn't know, or maybe even worse, that he can't help Ivan. And the days grow on and more painful. And Ivan finds himself, he can't get out of bed anymore, and it's just him and his pain. And he begins to grow angry, because this is not how it should be for someone who lives a good life. And even in the midst of this anger, he realizes what no one wants to tell him, is that no one can help him. No one can fix his problem. And no one wants to share with him what is eventually coming his way, is that he will soon die. And the anger grows into rage. Why? Because as he says, I've lived a good life. I've been intelligent. I've been right down the middle. I've been agreeable. And people who live this way should not have such ends to their lives. This is injustice. And all of a sudden, a voice begins to visit him. And is it himself? Is it God? And the voice asks, Ivan, what do you want? And Ivan's knee-jerk reaction is to live. And in a single word, the voice asks another question. How? And Ivan shouts back, well, as I always have. And there's silence. And this dialogue goes on for several days, until one day the question comes, Ivan, what do you want? And Ivan, tired of this dialogue, he's weary. He says, well, I want to live. And the voice says, how? And he doesn't respond, because he realizes at that moment maybe he's never really understood what it meant to live well. And as his hands begin to fall to his side, they land on his son, Sasha. And he looks at Sasha, and he doesn't have anger in his heart anymore. He has something like a mix of pity and compassion. Pity that his son only knew how his father modeled what it meant to live well. And a compassion that's wrapped up in hope and a prayer that Sasha will know how to actually live well. This is a story from Leo Tolstoy, written in 1886, after his conversion to Christianity. It's a story that I discovered in my late 20s that has haunted me in good ways. A story that seeks a kind of transformation in me that I might know what it is to live well. Why did I share this with you? Over June and July here at HPU Chapel, we're going to be doing a series of chapel services on the power of story. Why? Because there's something in us, and there's experiences I've had over time as a pastor, that people will often come to me and say, what do I need to know? What do I need to believe? What do I need to know so I'm certain that I've got this right? And what we accidentally do, what we're tempted into, is to making God into a list of bullet points. Making God into something we can master, rather being mastered by God's love. Oh, but to be mastered by God's love, it comes in the form of a beautiful story. Jesus knew this. He would start stories and say things like, there were two men who entered a synagogue. Or, there was a father with two sons. Or, this mustard seed, this small, very tiny mustard seed that seems insignificant Jesus knew something about God's truth that comes in the form of story, because story is the language of transformation. Over the course of the weeks ahead, you're going to hear from students, faculty, and staff about stories that have been transformational and powerful for them, and also those who are enriched by stories, who know how to listen to stories, that it's an art to know how to listen to other people's stories. Legend has it that Mr. Rogers, who was also a Presbyterian pastor, carried a note in his pocket every day that said, frankly, there is no one that you couldn't learn to love once you know their story. Why? Because God travels in story, and we become transformed by them. So I hope you come along this summer, that you hear these stories, so that you and I might know how to learn to live well. I look forward to joining you. Grace and peace to you.